broadcast live and replayed during family-friendly hours. As such, we ask that you refrain from the use of profanity during this meeting. Thank you for your cooperation and consideration for our younger participants. Gracias por unirse y participar en la reunión de esta noche. Por favor, tenga en cuenta que esta reunión se transmite en vivo y se retransmite durante horas familiares. Por eso pedimos que evite usar vulgaridades durante esta reunión. Gracias por su colaboración y consideración hacia nuestros participantes más jóvenes.
Good evening, everyone. I guess I'll say I'm calling to order the meeting of the City of Salem Budget Committee for April 15th, 2026. If we have a gavel. And can the recorder please call the roll?
Member Belichick's?
Here, big brother.
Member Nishioka?
Here.
Member Brown?
Present.
Member Manville?
Here.
Member Cohen?
Present.
Member Allen is absent. Member Matthews?
Here.
Member Gwen?
Here.
Member Hoy is absent. Member Fuller?
Present.
Member Vang?
Here.
Member Varney?
Here.
Member Dixon?
Here.
Member Jennifer Murray is absent. Member Geyer?
Here.
Member Nordike?
Here.
Vice Chair Vera Brandel?
Present.
And Chair Tygan?
Present. Okay, would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good evening, members and residents. Welcome. First off, before we go any further, please accept my apologies for not being able to be in person for the meeting this evening. Don't worry, the indignity of watching me on the screen will not last the entire evening. I'm going to begin with some opening remarks as chair and then ask our colleague, Vice Chair Vera Brendel, to act as the presiding officer, as she is actually in the auditorium today. But first, let's take a moment and orient people to the meeting who may not be familiar with the Budget Committee process. Every Budget Committee meeting will follow a similar order. We'll first approve the additions agenda if there is one, and there is tonight. Then we will hear public comment, approve the previous meeting minutes, and hear about information items from the city staff. Then we'll get into presentations from staff about two result areas. Tonight, City Manager Namburi will also provide some opening comments this evening. Just as a reminder, and I don't think this needs to be said for this August group, but this is a space to have decorum, approach others in a respectful manner, and be good to one another as we work through the city's budget. This will help us come together and successfully accomplish our two goals: adopting the tax levy rates and approving a budget to the City Council. For those keeping score at home, meetings will take place over the next several Wednesday evenings. We begin at 6 o'clock. If a meeting needs to go beyond the 10 o'clock hour, we'll have a motion will need to be made in order to extend the meeting in half-hour increments. I would also like to make just a few suggestions and some reminders for the committee. Some maybe best management practices, if you will. If you're interested in making changes to the proposed budget through a motion, I would highly recommend that you reach out to city staff ahead of time, Josh and his team, to work through both the language and the intent of your motion. This helps ensure that your motion will meet what you want it to meet. And also, while in general on City Council, we have a week deadline for motions before council, that timeline isn't necessarily going to be realistic here. So I would suggest engaging with staff far enough ahead of time in order to give your fellow committee members 2 or 3 days to review and consider a motion before it comes to the committee on a Wednesday night. And I think everyone would appreciate that, and that gets us to a better spot as a committee. There's certainly a lot to process in real time, as we all know. You can also ask staff for clarifying questions between meetings, though I would just recommend keeping those on point to critical questions on the budget as opposed to broad fact-finding missions, so to speak. And with that, I will go back behind the Wizard of Oz curtain and hand it to our colleague, Vice Chair Vieira Brendel, to preside over the remainder of the meeting.
Thank you, Chair Teigen. And I hope everyone got his underlying message to have no funny business tonight and take it easy on me. But with that, the first action of the night, we have some additions to the agenda. So could I get a motion to approve the additions?
I move to approve the additions.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, you can say aye, or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we'll move into public comment for the evening. For members of the public who have signed up, please state your name and address or ward. I think most of you have done this before. You'll then have 3 minutes to testify before the committee. If you're representing a group like a neighborhood association, you will get 5 minutes. Behind me, a timer will be displayed. At the conclusion of time on the timer, please stop your testimony. Also, no applause or crowd participation is allowed to ensure that we can hear everybody throughout their comments. So first person tonight on the list is Kathleen Tripa. And after that will be Jim Shepke.
Thank you very much, Kathleen Trepa, Ward 7. I understand what a difficult job it is to propose a balanced budget with constrained resources, and I understand that the community services levy relieved some pressure for a few years, but we all know it wasn't a magic bullet to solving the structural deficit. Having said that, I would really like to recommend that the city prioritize support for community-based programs that have a direct positive impact on marginalized communities and families in need rather than public safety. Investing in community to help alleviate the economic pressure that grinds people down, that contributes to anxiety, poor health, substance abuse, domestic violence, gang activity, vandalism, and even petty crime to help make ends meet. The insecurity of poverty contributes to escalating crime, it contributes to homelessness, youth violence, and poor outcomes that have sweeping impacts across our community. And while I've always supported the need for responsive and accountable law enforcement, there needs to be a balanced approach to addressing community needs beyond increasing public safety staffing. I understand that parking revenue must be spent downtown, but I don't think dedicating 2 new police officer positions, even for community policing, which I think is a great program, will have the same positive impact that supportive services do for the unhoused, especially as this country faces additional federal cuts and increasing costs. With regard to the library, this community advocated strongly for maintaining library services and supported the community services levy. And while I see the benefit of a volunteer coordinator and ongoing operational expense, I don't agree with cutting the acquisitions budget to fund that. That implies to me that book acquisitions will remain cut into the future to support ongoing labor costs, and I don't believe that's what the community supported. So thank you very much for your work. We look forward to this process, and thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jim Shepke and then Linda Beerley.
Chair Teigen, Vice Chair Vieira Brendel, Jim Shepke, I'm from Ward 2. I've submitted written testimony concerning the recommended library budget for the next fiscal year, and I hope you had a chance to read it. To summarize it briefly, I'm in full support of adding a volunteer coordinator position to the library. The Salem Public Library had a position like this years ago, and since we have not had the position, volunteers have been greatly underutilized in our library. In the latest data from the state library, our library ranked third from the bottom among the 24 libraries serving populations over 30,000 in volunteer hours per 1,000. As a career librarian, I worked with many capable volunteer coordinators, and I can tell you that the return on investment can be tremendous, particularly when there is severe understaffing like we have at our library. So I hope you will approve that recommendation. However, I'm adamantly opposed to funding the new position by cutting the book budget by 27%, which, as I've shown you in my written testimony, would bring the book budget down to the lowest it has been since 2010. And maybe even before then, because the state library statistics only go back that far. And I think the library is not being treated fairly in comparison to the other 3 city departments funded by the levy. In the recommended budget, Recreation Services gets an 8% increase. Parks Operations gets a 12.4% increase. Center 50 Plus gets a 13.2% increase. And what does the library get? A 3.2% increase. Instead of being allocated the 32.2% of the levy like last year, the library budget is bumped down to getting only 30% of the levy. So Parks Operations gets a $1.2 million increase to its budget, and the library has to settle for $207,000 increase, which probably doesn't even fund inflation. This is unfair. My friends and I didn't work our tails off last year, speaking to many hundreds of people coming to the library on Saturdays and most Wednesdays at a table right outside this auditorium for this, a gutting of our book budget. We expect our votes last year to mean that our library moves forward and not backwards. The recommended budget does not keep pace with the voters. I request that tonight you ask the staff for a revised library budget recommendation that maintains the current 32.2% of levy funds for our library. Thank you. Any questions? That's okay.
Jim, that no funny business applies to you too. Next up is Linda Beerley and then Ken Adams.
Good evening. I'm Linda Beerley, and I reside in Ward 8. I am the treasurer of the Salem Parks Foundation. Eco-Earth stands out as one of the symbols of Salem's welcoming and livability. Crafted by hundreds of volunteers, the Eco-Earth story is one of community creativity and effort. If we had $1 for every photograph taken of Eco-Earth, that would raise the funds for renovation. Visitors take their photograph in front of it. It forms a backdrop for events happening in Riverfront Park. It has a presence. It is a symbol of our world and its struggle for peace, for cultural diversity, and for environmental awareness. It is an important feature in the Salem landscape. Time, the elements, and a lack of maintenance have taken a toll on this beautiful mosaic. I'm here this evening to make you aware of the changing nature of this need. In 2021, the City of Salem came to us and asked us to fundraise for repair of Eco-Earth. At that time, the estimate was $400,000. The city would provide $112,000, and we were to raise $300,000. This was a big task for our small, all-volunteer organization, but we took it on. We completed this effort in 2025, and the city solicited new estimates. These recent estimates range from 1.3 to 1.5 million. The work scope has changed from repair to renovation, and the cost has gone up. This year's budget does not reflect this very important change. The numbers from 2021 remain. The $150,000 Cultural Resources Economic Fund appropriation from the state of Oregon expires in June of 2027. Half of the $300,000 raised will go away if the funds are not used by then. The Salem Parks Foundation respectfully requests the Budget Committee's support in addressing the gap between the current Eco-Earth budget line item and the higher restoration costs identified in the 2025 professional estimates. Specifically, we request an adjustment to the existing line item to better align authorized funding and expenditures with the updated scope and cost of the project. Aligning the budget with the revised estimates is essential to advancing the restoration and preventing further deterioration of this landmark asset. Thank you for your attention and your action to remedy this budget line item to better reflect fiscal reality.
Thank you so much, Linda. And, Linda, Member Nishioka.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Thank you for your testimony. You've asked us to change the amount for the line item. Do you have another amount that you were hoping to see, just so I can mark that down?
So I just had a conversation. I looked at the two estimates that they have, and I came up with a figure different from the engineer that's been working on this project, Aaron Kimsey. So I do hope that you can get a figure, but I would respectfully defer to his figures.
So if you get that, maybe you can provide testimony written or come back just so we can hear what.
I will. And just so you know what I know now, he said that the one contractor that came in at the lower figure, they had not included the asbestos abatement because apparently there's some doubt about whether it's actually needed. So that's why. But he said still it would be between 1.3 and 1.5. But yes, I will do my best to get a hold of that and come back. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then last up is Ken Adams.
Ken Adams from the Ward 1 and Court Chemeketa Historic District. And my question is basically, what are we doing to maintain our current infrastructure? Is that being looked at as a budget item? Because I contacted my councilman and he said he wasn't sure. But I think this is something that's very important in going forward, that we know how much it costs to maintain what we already have. And I think that's something that this board or group needs to be looking at and trying to get the information for as we go forward. I'd also like to talk about the library for just a minute. I find this library so helpful. I got a book that was just reviewed recently. It came in within a couple of days. And then I spent most of the day with my 3.5-year-old grandson who loves coming to this library. So it is an important part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for your testimony. Any written testimony was included with our agendas tonight, so we have received that as well. Next up is our approval of our January 14th, 2026 meeting minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve those?
I will move.
Thank you. And can we get a second?
I'll second it.
Great, thank you. Motion by Member Nordyke, second by Nishioka. Is there, we do not do discussion on this, so I guess all in favor. Raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, motion passes. Next, there's no action items, so now it is CFO Eggleston's time to talk us through some of the information items.
Good evening, Chair Tigan, Vice Chair Brandel. A few information items for you this evening. You should have received your budget documents last week when we dropped them off. There was some public testimony delivered, 2 staff reports with answers or questions and answers from committee members from staff. The revised minutes were in your addition item. And then on your table today, not for this meeting, but it should be your capital improvement plan. And if you're not here tonight, we'll reach out to get that to you also. But I'm happy to address any questions on the information items.
Member Manville.
Thank you. So Josh, I really appreciate your quick turnaround on some of these questions. I'm familiar with how the state budget works as far as authorized positions, but a couple of the questions about permanent versus full-time, I was like, okay, like, are these, like, the positions under the prevent, treat, and enforce and the pilot program for community policing, like, is that going to come back to us as a cut in the future of a permanent position? Like, I understand you want to hire for permanent positions, and you can backfill with vacancies in theory, but I'm just not sure if this body or the council authorizes by position or just generally budget, and it's not like, oh, you have X number of authorized positions.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So it is authorized by position, so position count. So if staff want to add a position throughout the year, we go to the city council to get that approved if the budget committee didn't. So those positions are, we call them career positions. I hesitate to say permanent because things change and move around, right? We haven't found success hiring limited duration officers or other positions like that. There's not many people where we want to do a separate recruitment, and if we do, we haven't had success getting a big list of people that want those positions. So in this case, for those positions, we generally have attrition, we generally have vacancies. So you're absolutely right. If those pilot programs end, we'd come back and eliminate that position, and that person would be reassigned to another position through attrition.
Thank you for that clarity. Would it be possible, I know traditionally the police department comes and lists their positions over time. Would it be possible to have an asterisk by these positions of like 4 of these were for pilot programs, just so, because we look at those numbers over time, and if these are pilot program positions, but they're higher, like, I just feel like it's going to look like, oh, suddenly we have 192 officers, but 4 of these are being hired under pilot programs, and then it's going to look like a cut to police if we can't afford the pilots going forward. So I don't know if there's a way to asterisk those in the way the police reports those in the budget.
Yeah, that's something we can look into. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you so much. I know we'll see you again. And there's no public hearings tonight, so we move on to item number 7, which is opening comments by our city manager, Krishna Namburi.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Good evening, and it's good to see all of you here tonight. And this marks the beginning of fiscal year 2027 budget process, and thank you for being here. And so it is with a great honor that I present the budget tonight. I'm also representing the 1,400 plus employees who serve this community every day with a great pride. So before I begin, I do want to acknowledge the work of our staff. The leadership team is here, the department staff who prepared the budget, and the budget team, of course. I know how much work goes into preparing a budget, and it has been a challenging year for the finance department, and with staff turnovers and vacancies, and I just want to recognize their commitment and bringing us, in getting us here. And I just want to kind of also highlight, they did the budget preparation and all that while they're actually implementing a brand new ERP system for us. So thank you, Josh and the team. As I walk through the budget tonight, my remarks will reflect the work, the commitment, and the people behind them. And over the past year, we have been very intentional about where we are spending our time and how we are using our resources. And we have strategically planned our work to put ourselves in a position to deliver the budget that is stable in the near term, reflects the community and council priorities, and also to create a space to invest into smarter and more effective solutions. So getting here today required definitely that discipline over the past 12 months and a willingness to try new approaches and to learn from what works and what doesn't. So it also required strong collaborations and partnership with our community and with our partners. And so collectively, we have made some meaningful progress. And the budget proposal in front of you is a one-year budget, but it has also been prepared within the context of the 5-year forecast for the general fund. And our responsibility is not just to balance the budget for today. We also have to put Salem on stable footing for the future. Now, when we came to you in January, we talked about the general fund forecast showed an ending fund balance that was $1.2 million below the council policy for fiscal year 2028. When at that time, I did commit to this budget committee and the community to say that my fiscal year 2027 budget proposal would address that gap. So with this proposal, this proposed budget delivers on that commitment. And so with this proposal, we are able to meet the council fund balance policy for both fiscal year 2027 and as well as fiscal year 2028. So this is an important progress, and I want to stay focused on that progress, but also I think it's important that I'm being clear about the financial reality in front of us, which is the underlying issue has not changed. As Salem grows, the demand for services continue to grow, and our primary revenue source does not keep pace. So that structural imbalance continues to shape how we plan and operate as a city. So we continue to take a disciplined approach through targeted reductions, staffing adjustments, cost control measures, and also new approaches to deliver services. So I want to acknowledge that those actions are necessary as we move forward, but at the same time, I think we must continue exploring options to fix that long-term structural gap that we have. Council began conversations about operations fee restructuring in February of this year. And that work will continue through the August work session. So the question this year, as we were, what it really comes to was not just how to balance the budget. I think we had to take a step back over the past 12 months to think about how to do it differently, how to improve services, and also I do think this is an important piece, which is how to reduce those cost escalations, because demand for services will continue to increase as we move forward. So, controlling those cost escalations is very important. And so what's also important here is, as I kind of reflect on my budget message from last year to this year, when messaging meets action, that's when good governance starts happening. I think that's where you make you can start seeing some real outcomes. So last year, we openly talked about our challenges. And so the past 12 months, we have been working on those challenges. So what you see in this budget is the result of that work. So how are we meeting the service needs, especially with the constrained fiscal environment that we are in? What we're really doing is we are changing in how we are delivering services. And increasing, and I think I mentioned this in my last year budget message too, increasing proactive services is an important step towards improving outcomes for the community. But also we need to be looking into reducing that cost escalation along with that. So when we are talking about the proactive services, that actually includes all of your services, right? Public safety and community services plays a huge role into that. Public works, internal services, and other services that we are providing. Every service has a reactive component to it, and there is a proactive component. Can we balance those two in a way that we are containing those cost escalations? And so rather than relying on completely on traditional models, what this budget emphasizes is targeted pilot programs. And they are designed to try new approaches and evaluate outcomes and then scale what works. And you will see that the same pattern through different initiatives that we have. As you can see, the proposed budget does include multiple pilot programs. The first one, I am recommending extending Safe, Clean, Healthy pilot program for 12 months. And we have seen the outcome of that program over the past few months. It has been in place. So my recommendation is to extend that for 12 months for the fiscal year 2027. So as we were kind of looking into how to extend this for the next year, the funding strategy also has evolved with that. Initially, when we talked about the HST officers, we were going to use general fund to pay for the 2 officers. And so what we are proposing through this budget, those positions will now be supported through opioid settlement money, and rather than using the general fund resources. Clean Salem will continue through existing general fund resources. And the REACH program will continue through our partnership with the Marion County, and also whatever the remaining costs will be paid through general fund. And that's kind of how the model was before too. So our second, pilot is prevent, treat, and enforce. And we had conversations about this a few times, and a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to present to the council the importance of, when we did the survey, drug abuse, reducing the drug abuse has been identified as one of our community priorities. And I think when we look at a complex issue like that, I think it's important to kind of move forward with that prevent, treat, and enforce. I don't think one thing is going to give us that outcome. I think it's the staff have done a really good job of applying the same framework that we have used for Safe, Clean, Healthy Salem. And so they applied the same work to the prevent, treat, and enforce. So on the preventive side of it, we are, our plan is to expand our outreach and strengthen our prevention efforts. So through an existing position within the city manager's office, we will be using and have an FTE from that resource to work on the preventive side of it. So I'm kind of excited to kind of see that work being done. And when it comes to the treat, that is not, that hasn't been a city lane before, but through the REACH program, we were at least able to be in that lane and connecting individuals with the right resources. So the other missing element for me there is the enforcement side of it. So that is why in this current budget, I am proposing adding 2 dedicated drug enforcement officers as pilot. And so their focus will be disrupting drug trafficking in Salem. So that's kind of where the focus is going to be. So one thing that I do want to highlight is because we were able to shift our funding for the HST officers from the general fund to opioid settlement fund, I think the idea is to redirect that dollar amount for the 2 drug enforcement officers without creating any deficit there. So that's the prevent, treat, and enforce initiative. We are also proposing a downtown community policing funded through paid on-street parking revenue. And this responds directly to the community priorities again. So when we, through the paid on-street parking, when we were ready to implement the system, we did a survey. And the survey clearly indicated that the safety and cleanliness was a priority in the downtown. So that's kind of why we are proposing, and adding community policing officers, I just want to kind of take us back a little bit, was also part of the Safe, Clean, Healthy Salem conversation that I did indicate, I think, from the beginning, that if paid parking generates more revenue than what we expect it to be, it was important that we focus on the community policing side of it, and not use general fund, but use paid parking for the 2 community policing officers. So, like, as you can see, all these programs are structured as 12-month pilots, and like CFO Eggleston mentioned, if the pilots do not achieve the intended outcomes, or they prove to be financially unsustainable because of the funding, they will be discontinued. And any position reductions will be managed through existing vacancies. So along those same lines, I think we also see 2 small but important additions, which is a 0.75 FTE a partnership coordinator position at Center 50 Plus, and then also a full-time volunteer coordinator position at the library. So I want to briefly speak about both of them, and I also, because I know there have been questions, particularly about the library position and the reduction to the materials and services. I just to kind of begin with, the primary objective to add both these positions is to create more community engagement for our proactive services. So that is, and giving that broader exposure to what staff have been doing in that community services area. And so I want to kind of, for the materials and services, and I'll take the responsibility on this, this is on me, that I haven't communicated clearly in the budget book about how we are adjusting the materials and services. So even though, while the budget reflects a reduction in the materials and services, our plan is to use fiscal year 2026 and 2027 savings, hopefully, to offset approximately, I think, around $120,000 to offset that impact for materials and services. So we'll be carrying over part of this money to the next year's budget. So your materials and services is going to be reduced by, the net impact is 40,000 plus, not 167,000 that we kind of listed in the budget book. So I apologize for that error. If I'm more than happy to explain that as you have questions on it. So what you have to kind of walk away with this is the net impact to materials and services for budget is around $40,000 plus, like not what you see in the budget book. And consistent with the overall approach in this budget, both these are also, again, pilot programs, because we need to measure the impact, and we understand what's working, what's not, and then we have to make informed decisions after that, right? So, but I'm excited about that community engagement that we can bring through this, through these 2 positions. So the livability levy plays a critical role in this budget. It supports the library services, parks and recreations, and the programs for seniors. And as promised through with the passage of the livability levy, that an oversight committee has been formed, and the expenditures of the levy funds are being reviewed to ensure that the funds are exclusively used for the purpose outlined in the ballot language. So. The one thing that we do have to acknowledge, that this is a 5-year levy, So we must continue planning for long-term sustainability on for these services. So these conversations will continue with the council as they have that conversation in the August work session about planning for the future. So while I know pretty much every budget year, the city manager's budget message focuses a lot on general fund and nothing outside of general fund. So I want to do justice to other funds and the good work that is kind of being done also throughout the city. So while the general fund faces structural challenges, some of other city funds are also under pressure. I want to kind of highlight the transportation services fund is experiencing declining revenues. The utility fund is facing rising operational and capital costs. The airport fund also faces uncertainty with the loss of commercial air service. So we need to plan for long-term financial strategies for these funds too. So there is more work to do there. So I want to take a few minutes to share the current state of the city services. And I know we are not always good about good at talking about the good work that we do, but I think it's important that I share this information, not because not for recognition, but I think it's because it reflects the collective work 1,400 plus employees of city employees do, right? So these are some of the work that has been done over the past year, and I feel like it's important to share this. So I do want to share this with humility because it also represents the services we are providing to the community. So across the organization, staff have delivered meaningful results through strong execution, innovation, and a deep commitment to service. So when I look at the spectrum of services that we are providing, it touches like so many different points, right? You're going from modernizing technology systems and bringing state-of-the-art technology into Salem to strengthening infrastructure reliability through public works and community planning and development, and from effective internal operations to improving external service delivery, the work that we have been doing through pilot programs, and from advancing housing production strategies to improving public spaces through streetscape work. So when you look at the magnitude of work that has happened over the past 12 months, what we get to see is the collaboration that happens behind the scenes among staff. And also, we made significant progress in how to improve how we serve this community. So in public safety, we are in a different place than we were just a year ago. So you might have heard this from Chief Umak before, but overall crime declined by 17% last year. Fatalities were cut in half. Violent crime dropped by 20%. And that is the largest single-year reduction in more than 15 years. So that is something that we should be celebrating. We also have successfully transitioned EMS services back in-house and to strengthen response and coordination in the community. Through Safe, Healthy, Clean and Healthy Salem, we are beginning to respond differently and more effectively. Through REACH program, we are triaging immediate needs and relieving pressure from on overburdened systems. And we recently expanded this to Northeast Salem, so I'm kind of excited to see some of the changes that we could make through that. And this program has been very effective. It's one of the well-liked program by the community. Every day we receive so many emails about when do you come to our part of the town, right? So I very much appreciate the work that the staff have been doing in this. So, and then by using AI tools like AVA to handle non-emergency calls. You might have heard about this, but we are bringing innovation and state-of-the-art technology to Salem to improve service delivery. And so with the prevent and treat and enforce, and I'm personally excited about the difference we can make to the community through this. And this is kind of one of those projects where bringing county, state, and the city services together and our partners together to make a difference in the community is something that is exciting to work towards. So in Public Works, staff delivered key infrastructure and safety improvements across the city. This includes sewer system upgrades, drinking water resiliency improvements, and neighborhood traffic and safety enhancements, such as traffic calming measures and new stop signs to improve safety and livability. In housing, the city issued permits for 854 housing units in 2025. So this is across a range of housing types, including single-family, multifamily, townhomes, and others. So this reflects continued progress towards increasing housing supply in Salem. So at the same time, we are also making strategic investments in services prioritized by the community through the levy. So this includes positioning parks for future grant opportunities. And I was extremely happy to participate in this, but recently the staff pitched to increase grant funding for a park in Northeast Salem. We're still waiting to see if we would receive it for a $2.2 million. So there's more work being done to seek for those grant opportunities outside of the Salem funding resources. And expanding support in the library and Center 50 Plus. And as you can see with the proposal of adding those positions, I do think through increased community engagement and volunteerism, we have an opportunity to expand awareness, increase access, and reinforce the value of continued investment in these services. I think we need to be doing more work in that and engaging the community and increase the value. So we're also planning to expand our innovative Bloomberg-Harvard collaboration framework into Northeast Salem this summer. You get to hear more about it on April 27th. I think the council gets to hear an update on the Bloomberg work, but we are going to expand. What I mean by that was when we launched Safe, Clean, Healthy Salem, we knew the number of calls that we were receiving in Salem, the volume-wise. Downtown was number 1 and the Northeast number 2 for police and emergency medical response. So our initial focus was downtown. So now the shift is going to be for the Northeast. So we have successfully secured a Harvard summer fellow, Alessandra, a second-year MBA student from Harvard. She will begin her work this June in Northeast. And she comes with an incredible experience. She has worked in Peru before, and she has done this work before. So bringing that expertise into kind of going with a similar program in Northeast Salem is something that we are looking forward to. So that work will start in June in Northeast Salem. So the one thing that I have to highlight this is because I get to see it every day and experience it. Staff workload continues to be one of my top concerns. And I know we're doing good work, but there is more work than the staff can handle. And so now we are beginning to incorporate innovation and AI into, of course, to improve community service outcomes, but also hoping to reduce the burden on staff. That itself cannot do everything, but at least kind of some relief. So when I look at all of the changes that happened all of the state of the city services, to me, this is what progress looks like. And I've said this before too, it's a one step at a time, moving in the right direction. And that you need to do it every day, right? So I'm glad we are where we are at. So as we move forward, our focus remains on maintaining financial discipline. That is the number one thing, innovation, and the community-focused decisions. So this budget reflects progress, but for me, in my opinion, it also reflects responsibility. The responsibility to continue making thoughtful decisions. And also the most important part is to position the city for the future. And over the past year, we have seen what's possible when the council, the staff, the community, and the budget committee, everyone come together. And it took strong partnership, tough decisions, difficult conversations, but we stayed focused on what matters most to our community. And I do think we are in a great position, and I honestly do want to give in my appreciation to the community for passing the levy that contributed to where we are at. But so I'm grateful for the progress we have made and for the partnership and support of the council and our community. But personally, what has been meaningful to me is the opportunity to connect with so many amazing community members and learn from their perspectives. And to our staff, and some of you are here, some of you are watching and maybe not watching, I know I've worked with many of you, I think, for over the past 26 years. You are one of the main reasons I chose to stay with the city for this long. Thank you for the trust you place in me and to represent you and this organization. So it has been fun over the past, that's probably the best way I can put it. It has been fun the past 14 months, but I honestly, truly kind of amazed every day about the trust you place in me to represent you and the organization. It has been both an honor and a privilege to work alongside you in service to Salem. So thank you to the Budget Committee for your continued support. And I respectfully submit the fiscal year 2027 proposed budget for your review and consideration. The proposal that reflects our commitment, our collective commitment to disciplined stewardship, responsible innovation, and a community-centered approach to building a stronger Salem. With that, I am here to answer any questions that you have.
Yes, Member Dixon.
Thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate the context. Two very specific questions. How long is the opioid settlement money going to last?
I can go ahead and start, and then CFO Eggleston can come and correct me. I think it is supposed to last until 2033 initially, but now with the way we changed the direction, it's going to last until 2030. Am I right, Josh?
31, very close.
I'm sorry.
We're with the updated burden on the opioid settlement funds, we're expecting to last through fiscal year 2031. And I should note there's other settlements that are under review, under consideration. We don't know the timing or the amounts, but there are other settlements out there.
Thank you. And then the second question is, you mentioned 854 housing permits, and I'm wondering how that compares to the targets in the housing production strategy.
Thank you for that question, Member Dixon. I could tell you, I don't have the response for that question, so I'm going to call Director Rutherford to respond to that, or Assistant Director. Oh, Kristen is coming.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Rutherford, Director of Community Planning and Development. The target in the housing production strategy is 1,100 units a year, so we are under.
Okay, so just a little bit shy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Member Nishioka.
Don't go away, Kristen. I don't know if you know, but I'm wondering, of that 1,100, is there any division between the anticipated need or amount dedicated to multifamily or to higher density in the sense of 4 and 3 duplexes and single-family homes?
Not that I have available tonight, but we can respond with that information.
Thank you.
And are there any other questions for City Manager? Yes, Evan.
All good. Thank you, Vice Chair. And thank you, City Manager, for the presentation, and to the staff for putting together the budget. I know it's a tremendous amount of work, or I can't even imagine. So some clarity on the opioid settlement funds. What are we currently using them for? Are we just spending them quicker with this? What are they generally used for?
So this doesn't shift what we're spending on. We're just spending more faster, and if we may, we can bring that back with the forecast and what we're spending it on.
Member Matthews.
I may have misunderstood, and I was under the impression that we were taking funds and shifting them in some way from supporting the homeless services team, that now they'll be supporting the homeless services team, opening up general funds for the drug enforcement team. Is that correct?
That is correct, but what that does is it spends more of the opioid settlement dollars faster.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? Yes, Member Manville, Member Fuller.
I just want to make sure that I understood part of what you were saying correctly. When you talked about the book acquisition budget, it sounded to me like you said that next year there was a plan to fund it fully as it was. This is why I'm asking for clarification, because I don't think I heard you right.
So, I'm sorry, which budget?
Okay, so the book buying budget. I'm talking about the library. Sorry, context is important. So what it sounded like to me is that you acknowledged that it was not funded fully, but that next year, I thought I heard you said that it would be, or there was some savings that was going to carry over. Can you explain that a little bit more? Right. Thank you.
I know, it is confusing, and I should have known the context when you asked the question, so my apologies on it. So what you see in the budget is it shows like the materials and services for library is reduced by $167,000, if I remember it correctly. Mm-hmm. And so, but because we had some vacancies in fiscal year 2026, which is the current fiscal year, we carry over that savings to the next year, right? Okay. So even though for the materials and services, it was reduced by $167,000, we could shift the savings that we have from this year, and most of the time we have some savings in each year, so we're at least anticipating some savings in the fiscal year 2027. So by combining both of those, we think that, at least we are projecting, that we could cover $120,000 through that. So the net impact is only, reducing that materials and services by $40,000 plus or whatever.
So it balances.
It balances,
but it doesn't. Does it get us more books?
It's actually $40,000 less than what every year, right? So I don't know if Gretchen or Josh, do you want to cover that?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. So one thing I think that's helpful for this conversation is how we set the budget for each of the services. So we build the library, Center 50 Plus, Parks and Rec, based on a target. And how that's built is we take all the personal services costs, all the position costs, which includes staff turnover. So as staff turnover, they hire someone new, lower benefits, lower wages generally. So you can see a lot of fluctuation sometimes when that happens. And then we escalate the materials and services costs. So the total budget for the library looks like it's a little bit less than the other services, but it's what I would call a current service level budget for the library. Specifically, for this trade-off conversation, by adding the volunteer coordinator and then being able to utilize carryover funds and savings next year, we're looking at an overall reduction to that collection budget of about $40,000 from 26 to 27.
And I just want to add that I think that kind of allows us to kind of stay to the targeted budget that we give the departments, right? So that's kind of what it was.
Member Manville.
Thank you. And I don't know if this is something you can answer, but looking at those $30 million deficits a few years down the road is worrisome. But I am not someone who volunteers as much time as our counselors who serve on this committee do, and have been really tracking the operations fee discussion. Do we have a sense of the magnitude of what revenue we might get out of operations fee adjustments yet?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. That's really pending city council discussion. They haven't had that high-level policy decision yet.
Any other questions for our city manager? Yes, Member Nishioka.
Thank you. I seem to remember, and I probably heard already, but Josh, could you review what the livability levy, the target was, and what basically what we thought we might receive, what has come in, and if over the 5 years you have an anticipated change in what we had expected?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So we're still really early in a 5-year levy. We're just a few months in. So for this year, fiscal year 26, it's coming in right where we expected it to come in. Property taxes, the nice thing about them is they're fairly predictable. So we have a pretty good idea of what's going to come in. One thing that we did when the city council decided on the rate, 98 cents per thousand, is it set up a limitation, right? So it's kind of constrained, similar to the general fund, to the current services. So it's really challenging to add things, because what that levy really needs to do is actually add some fund balance in the first couple of years to help continue the services as the costs increase in years 3, 4, and 5. So I would really, it would be a challenge to try to spend some of those dollars now when we need to rely on them later in the 5-year forecast.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our city manager? Okay. Thank you so much, City Manager Numberay, and thank you for your leadership over the last 14 months. I'll now turn it over again to CFO Eccleston to do a presentation of the fiscal year 2027 proposed budget.
Thank you. Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer. I'm going to do a few slides before we turn it over to the results areas. Okay, so budgeted resources. The budget is the city's annual fiscal plan and the first year of a 5-year plan. This year's proposed resource budget totals $1.13 billion, with over a third of the beginning fund balance or cash on hand at the beginning of each fiscal year. The second largest category of budgeted revenue is sales, fees, licenses, and permits, followed by internal and intergovernmental, which includes services, internal charges between funds, grants, and revenues expected from other agencies. The budget is the city's annual, the total budget expenditures, $816.1 million. This is for the total of all city funds. You'll You'll hear us talk about how employee costs are the largest share of the city budget. The difference here is it includes construction funds, so it makes up a large portion of that materials and services budget, but it still represents a large portion. This display shows the city budget by result area, breaking out that $816.1 million into the 6 result areas. As you saw on the previous slide with the construction funds, it's also bolstering that safe, reliable, and efficient infrastructure slice, followed by safe and healthy community and good governance. And then you can see welcome level community, natural environment stewardship, and then strong and diverse economy. So a few changes here that you may have noticed in the program pages. As you probably know, we use priority-based budgeting. It converts the hundreds, thousands of line items into programs that mean a little bit more than other professional services or other account codes. Each program is in a home program. So while PBB scores across multiple different result areas, the dollars are housed in a single result area. One big shift this year is we're only showing a single year. So you can only see fiscal year 2027 there. And the reason, City Manager Naburi mentioned we are undergoing an ERP update, Enterprise Resource Planning, full system update in preparation. We looked at all our programs. So we've replaced, reduced, consolidated programs across departments. So for this year, we're only showing fiscal year 2027. Next year, we'll show a comparison. And the following year, we'll be able to show actuals because the new ERP system is going to be able to track actuals by program, which we haven't had that since we implemented this in 2018. So you can see the program budgeted cost as well as the staff amount there. One thing I should note, it came up a little bit earlier. Member Manville, you asked about permanent positions, limited duration positions, things like that. So you notice the REACH team there has 0 staff assigned to it. It's because their budget is limited duration positions. So career positions show up here under the staffing number. The alignment is based on the priority-based budgeting scoring. So most, more, less, and least aligned to the overall program quartile for the program score. If you see a less or least, it doesn't mean it's not important. It doesn't mean we should reduce the program. It just means it might have an essential influence in one area and a lesser influence in other areas. And then you can see the actual program scores here on the right. These are department submitted scores. They go through a peer review process before they end up here in the budget document. There also is, for lack of a better term, an organizational chart after the table of contents in the budget book where you can see results area and the services that are in each area. If you're not sure where things are, there has been some movement. With that consolidation, there are some areas that moved result areas, so you'll see some numbers shifted. Our favorite slides is the 5-year forecast. This is the forecast we presented in January. As City Manager Naburi mentioned, you can see the below fund balance compliance for fiscal year 2028 there in red. And the main point I want to note for the updated forecast is that we're showing a positive policy compliance for both fiscal year 2027 and 2028. I do want to note that this updated version isn't the same as what was prepared for in January. It's not the full meal deal of the forecast. We replaced the personal services cost for this forecast and updated the beginning fund balance. So it does reflect new information, but it's not as comprehensive as an update as we do in January. And I'll pause there to see if there's any questions kind of on the budget overview before we get into the result areas.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions for Mr. Eggleston? Yes, Member Manville, and then Member Nordyke.
Yeah, so it looks like we've got an extra couple million by 2031. Can you line out where that, like, why we improved a little bit over the years?
Why we improved a little bit over the years?
Yeah. What got better in terms of expenses or revenue?
Yeah, so we made some changes, and they're outlined in the budget message. One shift was we increased the non-represented health benefit share from 5% to 10%. That was impactful over the 5-year forecast, so that is represented here. We made some personnel shifts in the fire department. That's also outlined in the budget message. So reclassed 2 positions, eliminated 1 other position, envisioning a different way to respond to commercial air service if it were to come back. And then there were some, I call them voluntary reductions from departments. So as we went through the budget process, there was just some departments that were able to come in below that targeted number. So we were able to make about $150,000 reduction per year just with voluntary reductions. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to I know it's like volunteer reductions by the departments, but it took them some work to come up with that money. So I want to appreciate the work that they have done on that. So thank you.
Okay, great. Member Fuller?
Yeah, so I'm hearing that a lot of these positions are limited duration. What does that, was it taken into consideration, that approach, when it comes to retaining and hiring people for those positions? I'm just thinking, if someone is hired for a 1-year limited duration job and quits at 7 months, trying to find someone for the remaining 3 months might be difficult.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So we use limited duration in a couple spots for budget authority. But like, for example, the 2 REACH positions, while we're budgeting limited duration, they're actually using current employees on special assignment. So it's a little bit of a different setup than the other police officer positions or the library or Center 50 Plus. So we do take that into account. It's extremely difficult to hire limited duration positions. It works maybe for a time-limited project, but for a pilot program or something like that, it's hard to get a high-quality employee that's willing to do that.
Are there any other questions before we move into the specific areas? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much, Mr. Eggleston. And now we'll begin the specific result area presentations. After each one of these, there will be an opportunity for us to ask questions of staff and to discuss that result or to make motions. So, Budget Manager Leinenbach, the floor is yours.
I have to go way down. Okay. So I'm here to present this evening. Good evening, Budget Committee. I'm Callie Leinenbach, Budget Manager, first of all. I'm here to present this evening the Natural Environment Stewardship Result Area, and it's the first area we're going to go over this evening. The programs in this result area are managed by the Public Works Department, and they really focus on environmental compliance, monitoring, and education. The result area begins on page 89 of the city budget book, and that's where you can find more information about these programs. Natural Environment Stewardship has just under $51 million in proposed expenditures for fiscal year 2027, with 4 major program groupings that represent responsible wastewater treatment, careful natural resource management, water quality monitoring, compliance with federal and state permits, and work toward climate action goals. There are 157.17 full-time equivalent positions that provide services related to the natural environment stewardship. So there are several items we wanted to highlight in this result area, starting with wastewater. For Willow Lake Wastewater Pollution Control Facility, the south secondary clarifier will be replaced, and that's after a mechanical failure of the 50-year-old equipment. A gate replacement at the River Road facility will occur to route flows during high flow events, and the city will also be hiring a consultant to evaluate options for replacement of the distributed control systems to support the wastewater process. Also for Willow Lake, due to increasing concerns with PFAS, the city is shifting from providing biosolids for use on agricultural crops and is now budgeting for disposal in the landfill. And this is reflected in the proposed budget and is a $1.9 million change. The Environmental and Technical Services section, based on requirements developed by the Environmental Protection Agency and administered by the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, will continue to implement strategies to reduce pollutants related to current total maximum daily loads and water quality standards. Also, the city is continuing to mitigate the impacts of the emerald ash borer to protect ash trees in our area. Some projects budgeted in this result area include the Liberty Road ditch conversion for green stormwater management, several stormwater planter rehabilitations, and an assessment of PFAS at the airport to continue testing and develop strategies for remediation there. Salem is advancing sustainability and environmental stewardship through key projects and accomplishments, including ecological restoration efforts, infrastructure improvements, innovative stormwater treatment, and urban forestry initiatives. There are several examples listed here on the slide, and then more in the result area pages. And with that, staff are available for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Yes, Member Dixon.
Thank you. Couple of questions about long-term needs in the area of wastewater and stormwater and drinking water. Earlier this year, we discussed how the city has some significant needs to replace aging and failing pipes that carry wastewater, stormwater, and drinking water. On page 163 of the budget narrative, there's a mention of development of a wastewater collection system master plan. And I'm wondering where we could find that plan if it is developed.
Good evening, Budget Committee members. Brian Martin, Public Works Director. We are actively working on that wastewater system master plan. In fact, we're going to start having some outreach meetings because we're getting close to wrapping it up. So while it's not included as part of the budget document, I wouldn't say we have it readily available, but we do have it available, and if people are interested in seeing it, we could certainly supply that.
That would be great. I would like to see it. And then I have a couple of follow-up questions.
Okay.
If I could. On page 225, the capital project, this is the main budget book. The capital project expenditure summary shows spending of what I calculate is $45 million. I'm sorry, it's page 225. And I just added up the lines for spending on wastewater, stormwater, and water systems. And I'm hoping I added it correctly, but anyway, how much of that spending will go toward replacing the aging and failing pipes? I realize not all of it is on pipes. I'm just wondering if you could supply that. You may have it at the top of your head. I don't know.
I don't have it at the top of my head. I know we'll be talking about it when we go through the capital budget, but we could also have that ready for you so that we can separate those numbers out when we talk then.
That would be great. And then just when you do that, I would also like to know what percentage of the pipes that are at risk these projects are going to take care of. I realize there's a large volume of those pipes. I'm wondering how much of that need is going to be taken care of.
Okay, we can look at that.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Member Manville.
Thank you. Do we know where we are on tree canopy? It's mentioned that we had 24%. We're aiming for 28%, and we're doing some data collection, but I didn't know if we knew where we were.
Yeah, I don't have good news to report on that. We were talking prior to the meeting. That 24% was from a 2018 number. We have a revised number that puts it at 20%. So we've actually lost some tree canopy.
And just a general question for staff, I guess. Can you remind us what you choose to put in the result area statistics? And like, I was like, oh, why isn't tree canopy a result area statistic? And like, kind of how you choose those and what to present to us on that.
Appreciate the question. It's an evolving process. It's actually something we're looking at improving. We actually have a current pilot program with the police department specifically to improve the performance metrics and stats that we produce in the budget document. You might remember that we apply for and we have received for the last couple of years the Government Finance Officers Association budget award for the document. But one thing they said that we needed to fix actually by next budget year, so not fiscal year 27, but 28, was this specific question. So improving the performance metrics displayed in the budget document. So stay tuned.
Any other questions from the committee? Yes, Member Cohen.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I wanted to start by giving a shout out to Rose Highbear with Elderberry Wisdom Farm. I, with the team, worked on her farm and repotted a bunch of trees that are going for the City of Salem. So I'm very thankful for the City of Salem partnering with local nonprofits, especially indigenous folks, to make our tree canopy better. I do have a question regarding trash that is picked up from the clean streams. It looks like it is just skyrocketing since 2020. Is there a reason for that? Is it because we have more people picking up trash? Is it because there's more trash in the water? And then I'm assuming we pay for the disposal of that trash. Is that correct? Are there any plans for how to mitigate that cost?
To your first question about is there more trash or more people, I would have to refer to one of our professional experts out here. Mark oversees the group that picks up the stream trash, and he would be able to speak on that as far as how we cover the cost of actually disposing of that trash. That's built into the rates for that program. So it's just an added cost to how we operate.
Good evening, Mark Bechtel, Assistant Public Works Director over Operations. We use two different labor forces to clean the streams and the creeks in town. One is a summer stream crew, which you actually saw their picture up on the screen there, where they concentrate on cleaning the streams through town. They actually walk through every creek and stream in town and pick up trash. And that's a program that's every year and very constant in size, staff-wise. Then also our stormwater maintenance crews year-round remove garbage and trash from streams and riparian areas. So the staffing is the same. The garbage is increasing as far as what's impacting our streams and creeks. So the cost for disposal is handled through the utility for that. There may be some general fund coverage if it's part of the clean team work, but most of it is through the utility fund.
Did you get both of your questions answered?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, great. Any other questions from the committee? All right, if there are none, then I think we can move on to the next result area of welcoming and livable community, which will be presented by our CFO.
Thank you, Vice Chair. The second results area for review this evening is the Welcome Global Community. And first to start, I was happy to delete a lot of slides from this results area compared with last year. It was quite a relief, actually. So the total for this results area is just over $62 million, and there are 207.15 full-time equivalent positions within this results area's programs. Program pages for this results area provide a further breakdown of services and positions, and they can be found beginning on page 189. A few of these things we've already talked about this evening, but I do want to highlight my reference to reducing slides was last year we went through in depth about a reduction scenario. We're happy not to have that. We're talking about, in this case, expanded library hours continuing. They started in November of 2025, and there's an additional 21 library hours added between the main and West Salem Library branch. We've talked quite a bit about the volunteer coordinator and the 0.75 FTE partnership coordinator at Center 50 Plus. They also have an engagement expansion they're looking at for Center Without Walls to meet older adults where they are outside of the senior center. For Parks and Recreation, we've also talked about the clean team expansion, continuing this pilot through fiscal year 2027. And there are quite a few improvements and projects through grant funding. City Manager Nemburi mentioned another opportunity, but we're always happy when we see bond funds that can be leveraged to receive grant funds as well. And then that program realignment that we talked about earlier this evening, one thing I want to note is that the permitting function now lives in local and global communities. So you see building and safety and part of development services are new to this results area. And just real quick before we leave that, if you're looking for that year-over-year comparison, as always in the back of the budget book, if you look at the line item detail by department, you can see the year-over-year difference, and also there's a new summary in each results area, where at the service level, it compares the fiscal year 26 to 27 budget. So you can see those in the front section, the overview section of each results area. And we're happy to answer any questions about Welcome Global Community.
All right. Who's got a question? Yes, Member Geyer.
Yes, thank you. I was curious about our new baseball field specifically. Sorry, this is really loud. Got my coach voice out here. And I'm curious about it because when the completion of those, and when can we actually maybe start seeing some outside revenue from tournaments and athletic youth events such as?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and we're going to bring up someone who knows.
Good evening, Rob Romnak, Parks Planning Manager. I believe the question is specifically about Gear Park and our two baseball fields there.
Yeah, Gear, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. So we've completed a conversion of the infields to artificial turf, and it will look really good. At present, we are waiting for, this is going to sound a little odd, we're waiting for the geese to leave so we can grow grass in the outfields.
Okay.
We are on, we're working toward an early June opening for pretty much all the improvements in the park, including the soccer field and the new dog park as well.
Okay, thank you for that update. Appreciate it.
Any other questions from the committee?
Have we asked the geese to leave?
Have we asked the geese to leave was the question. Member Dixon.
Thank you. A couple of questions about housing production, and I think that's covered in here because it talks about building permits. Related to the housing production strategy, broadly, is the development of new housing a net gain or a net drain on the city budget?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure it's one that we can answer here, but it's certainly something we can give some thought and bring back.
Okay, and then related to that, what about industrial, commercial institutional and retail development? It would basically be the same question. How do those categories of development affect the city budget? If you add a new house, what's the effect? If you add a new industrial operation, how does that affect it?
Yeah, I think the short answer is it depends. There's a lot of variation in industrial, retail, warehousing, and their impact on city services in different ways. Some have a greater transportation impact, some have a greater impact on call volume for fire and police. So there's a lot of variation there. We can certainly bring back something. I'm not sure it's going to be quite satisfactory because that's a question that often requires a consultant and quite a bit of study and assessment.
Well, if you could blue sky it even, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, Member Cohen.
Thanks, Vice Chair. 2 shout outs and then 2 questions. First shout out, thank you to the library. My toddler had a blast at the 50s bubble and dance party that was there. So keep up the good work. Seeing families, young families, is always a wonderful thing. So thank you so much for that. Reading with your dogs is also an amazing program every Saturday. So please go see that. The other shout out is to all the brand new parks or remodeled parks. My kids give them 2 thumbs up. They love them, love them, love them. Thank you so much for supporting families in this city. 2 questions I have is, how much does the library pay the Salem Reporter for advertisement on their website? And why the Salem Reporter, and are there other websites that the library is going to utilize that with?
Just one moment.
Hi, good evening, Budget Committee members. Gretchen Bennett, Community Services Director. We don't pay. They just wanted to fill space, and so they went ahead and promoted.
That is awesome. Thank you. I was curious.
Thank you.
And then on that note, because I saw another advertisement for the neighborhood associations on the corner of Kubler and Commercial. Is that also free, or do we pay for that? And it was a billboard, for clarification.
Thank you for all the questions. I'm also learning. So thank you.
Good evening, Budget Committee members. My name is Courtney Knox-Bush, and I'm an Assistant City Manager, Director for Strategy and Engagement. Your question about neighborhood-specific advertisements, that's part of a fund source that the Council and I think the Budget Committee awarded to neighborhood associations in particular to increase engagement. So we periodically do some billboards to raise all boats, and then we do some dedicated outreach and engagement with individual neighborhoods, and they tailor that to their neighborhood specifically. Thank you.
Yes, Member Nishioka.
Courtney, could I just for clarity, I think that was a motion made back in maybe 2022 or 23, and was that for a specific amount of money that I'm remembering? It seems like it was for $50,000 total for all 17 neighborhood associations.
Yes, I believe it was actually earlier. It may have been an in-person meeting pre-COVID or an online COVID meeting, but it was earlier than 22, 23. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Member Manville.
Thank you. I feel like this is The Price is Right. It's like, Courtney, come on down. I discovered this year that Los Angeles gives a 1-week free ability to check things out. You don't have to be a resident. And I discovered that because our collections are wanting. They're great. We check out hundreds of things every year from the library, but they're wanting. And I wanted to get a sense from librarian staff, like, I love the idea of a volunteer coordinator and community engagement. That's fabulous. And I just want to kind of flesh out like how we think about the trade-off between having, I mean, most everything about our library is anemic compared to our peers, as has been demonstrated well. But kind of that trade-off of, hey, would we rather have another staff person? Would we rather more collection? Like, how do you think about that as staff and those kind of trade-offs? Because they're tough trade-offs. And there's no good answer. I'm just like, okay, our collection budget is half of what it used to be, so why are we cutting from that instead of other things?
I appreciate that you said there's no good trade-offs because, yeah, absolutely. It would be amazing to grow the collections budget and add special elements to each of those. I think when we look broadly, it's so important to continue to broaden all of the people engaged at the library to be with us, to look for how to grow participation, how to increase our reach, how to be with people in this space. And so that was the choice that was made. It wouldn't devalue the need for other things, but I guess I would just say that. I also hope the intended reduction to the impact to the collections budget was noted in City Manager Nambury's piece. You know, we are intending to look for savings rather than to hit that budget.
If I may, yes. Yeah, I just want to add to what Director Bennett was saying. So when we started having conversation about the providing more support to community services, especially with the Center 50 Plus and the library positions, it was intended to give more, not to take away, right? So when I'm looking at, we are adding a position as a volunteer coordinator to be able to give that more community engagement and create that support from the community about proactive services. So even though that, you are seeing like a $40,000 reduction into your materials and services, overall that's what it is, but you're also gaining in a net gain of $120,000 through the position added, right? So I just want to kind of say that for the next year, I think our intention was to give more, not to take it away. But I mean, who knows? Next year, when we look at the savings, maybe we will have more savings than what we are expecting. Josh is just looking at me. Don't say that, Krishna. But who knows? Like, there might be more savings next year, and then we could probably cover that 40,000 too, right? Like, so at this point, this is what I think I feel comfortable to commit to, and we feel comfortable to commit to. So I just want to kind of point out that the intention is to give more, not to take away.
Yeah, Member Fuller and Member Dixon.
My intention will be to ask next year, City Manager Nambury, if we'll just ask again about I understand that you're not wanting to take things away, and I do, but the library is something that the community it's a flagship in our community, and so when things are reduced, we notice and we ask. So thank you for being so transparent and answering the questions. I appreciate it.
So, our goal is not to reduce that, right? So we'll give it our best shot to not to create that reduction for the materials and services, but and we'll work through that next year. Thank you. And for the 40,000. So.
And just as a position statement, I disagree with the reasoning, and I think the library collection should be kept whole and have some other function be contingent on what carryover and that sort of thing you can put together. It's purely a policy disagreement, and I do appreciate all of the explanation and context. Thank you.
Yes, Member Nordyke.
Thank you so much. So I'm trying to remember, I seem to recall that when we were taking a look at URA funding and general funding, that there was some finding of some of the community plan development staff were being paid for with Gen Fund dollars, but actually some of it could have been paid for with URA dollars. I seem to recall this from a city council meeting we had many, many months ago. Am I remembering that correctly? And is that still a thing? Or have we made those adjustments to more accurately utilize urban renewal dollars?
Yeah, so it definitely was a thing. It's been corrected both for fiscal year 2026 and projected in 2027, and we'll provide an overview of that when we get to strong and diverse economy with the URA.
Yes, Member Matthews.
I think what might be helpful, and I think we had this data potentially last year when we were kind of looking at the budget crisis at that time. And at the time, I think we looked at how many volunteer hours kind of all the departments, all the programs that are being funded by the levy are. So the Center 50 Plus were receiving, how many volunteer hours the library was receiving, and how many volunteer hours the parks were receiving. I can't find that data. I seem to remember us having it, but I think it'd be helpful for me to see how many volunteer hours each one of these departments are actually having, and then in comparison, do they currently have a volunteer coordinator or someone in their department that's actually handling those volunteer hours, to see if there's a kind of a metric there to say a volunteer coordinator is averaging out to a much higher amount of volunteer hours or not.
Yeah, so it's something we can bring back at a future meeting.
Any other questions from the committee? Yes, Member Nordijk.
Sure, just an observation. I want to commend the staff. In page 191 of the book, it talks about how 100% of the residential plan review's initial comment were sent within 10 business days, and 100% of the commercial plan review's initial comments were sent within 20 days. I appreciate all of those efforts being made. There was also 72% of the final plat reviews were completed within 10 working days, and 100% of the preliminary plat reviews were completed within 30 working days. I know that with a city that is rapidly growing like ours, staying on top of all of the permitting steps takes a lot of professional staff. It takes staff who, if they haven't been there very long, you have to learn how to be efficient very quickly. So I just want to say how much I appreciate your efforts to meet those goals, and I hope to see more performance metrics. This budget meeting is not the time and place to discuss what other metrics where we could do better, but I know that I'm mindful of that, and we hear, as counselors, we hear this in the community a lot, the desire to streamline our permitting process, to expedite development. Time is money. We all know this. You've heard me comment on this before, so I wanted to give you kudos for the great performance metrics we're seeing here. And in another space, I would love to hear about where we still have room for growth. So I just want to say thank you so much, because I know this is a very tough job, and I appreciate you.
Any other questions from the committee on this result area? Okay, I think that's all. Thank you so much, CFO Eccleston. Now we are moving to the final item under special orders of business, which is just an opportunity for the committee to return to any past discussions, bring up new items. Is there anything? Yes, Member Manville.
I do want to take a moment to flag why we got revised minutes in our packet. And that's because we violated public meetings law at our last meeting, once again. And I think we all know from the OGEC training that we are required to do and we're quizzed on that public meetings law is our responsibility. It's not staff's responsibility to make sure that we follow it. What happened was we voted via written ballot, and we didn't announce everyone's vote at that meeting. And then they're supposed to be listed in the minutes, and so I requested that, and staff did that and sent revised minutes. I appreciate staff's responsiveness to that. But like, I want to urge us all, like myself included, I raised a question last time, but I didn't. It's my responsibility to know the answer. And it's all our responsibilities to know the answer and be transparent as a decision-making body. Related to that issue, I was kind of looking back and I was like, oh, you know, 3 years ago, we just voted out loud. And I don't know if staff or anyone else can explain to me the decision to move to secret ballots and then to just written ballots with our names on them, and kind of what that decision was, and why we did that 2 years ago, and screwed it, why we did it this year and got it slightly wrong again. But can we, like, I don't know what other decisions are made by a decision-making body at the city that do private written ballots. And so if somebody can explain how we got there a couple of years ago and revised it, and maybe I'm forgetting and we discussed it at the time, but yeah.
I'd just like to ask a clarifying question before he clarifies your question. What was the violation?
Well, I'll defer to our, well, I will explain it because it's my responsibility to know. Results of the votes shall be recorded,
okay.
Including for groups of less than 25 members, each governing body's member, sorry, I'm reading it from my phone. Results, should we go to, for public bodies with more than 25 members, the individual notes do not to be recorded unless one member makes a request, but that doesn't apply to us. So the vote of each person shall be recorded. So that happened, but then the public meetings minutes have to list the results of the votes, including everyone's vote. And also, during the meeting, each governing body's members' vote shall be announced during the meeting which the vote occurred. Now, the city attorney said, hey, if somebody requests that, we'll do that. But it actually has to happen at the minute. So that's what the OIR says. That's what the Oregon Administrative Rule says. So we just should have, after having that vote, my understanding is we could do it via written, but we then had to announce sometime during that meeting, here's who voted for who. And
Thank you.
That was a failure.
Thank you.
And correct me correct me, please, if I'm getting that wrong. I'm just reading from my phone, and I'm not an attorney.
Dan Atchison, City Attorney. No, Member Manville's correct. So the Oregon Revised Statute has remained constant over the years, and this committee and City Council and other City Council boards and commissions have from time to time used written ballots. That's been a standard procedure. What changed was in 2024, the OGEC adopted administrative rules that provided additional requirements that went beyond what's required by the statute. And I will take ownership of it. That change was missed. Member Manville, during last year's budget committee meetings, asked, and I got it wrong. So technically, there was a technical violation in that the results of the votes that happened through that ballot in nominating the positions for the budget committee were not announced during the meeting. And thank you for Commissioner Manville for noting that and being persistent and asking us about it again. I actually went back and read the rule, and you're absolutely right. So we are dispensing with written ballots. So next time when it comes up, you're going to be appointing a budget committee chair and vice chair, you're going to do it through a voting process and not through a ballot process. You can still do ballots, but it's sort of redundant because you're going to do the ballots, and then the recorder is going to announce the results and who voted for who on every ballot. So what's the point of doing ballots anyway? But my apologies for leading the commission astray on that.
Yeah, again, it's not your responsibility. But
it absolutely is my responsibility, and it's also the members' responsibility. But it's no one would expect members of this budget committee or city council, for that matter, to have encyclopedic knowledge of all the various administrative rules that apply to public meetings. And that's on us, that's on me, so my apologies for not getting that right.
Anything else from the committee? Yes, Member Cohen.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Not about this. Okay. Is the Salem Housing Authority, is that under the Welcome Livable Community, or is that a different area?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Is this Salem Housing Authority, is that in this welcoming livable community?
So the Salem Housing Authority is a separate entity and it's not part of this budget committee's work. So this budget committee is focused on the City of Salem and the Salem Urban Renewal Agency. The Salem Housing Authority budget is adopted by the Salem Housing Authority Commission at one of their meetings.
Do we fund them at all or give any funding?
No, not directly. It actually works the reverse. So we have an intergovernmental agreement with Salem Housing Authority. We provide payroll services, HR services, legal services, and they pay us for those services.
Okay.
Do either of our members that are online have any questions or things that you'd like to bring up?
This is Member Brown. I do not.
Okay, thank you. And does anybody else in person have any more questions, discussion? I saw some books closing, so I think, yes, Member Manville.
I know I've spoken a lot, but I would just note it's tax day, and as the Budget Committee, I think it's good to think back on the frame that taxes are the price we pay for civilized society, and they do provide a lot of community services that we're all grateful for. Appreciate the city providing them, and appreciate you all working with them. So thank you.
If there is truly no other discussion, then I think we can move on to adjourning this meeting. Just a reminder that our next meeting will be next week, same time, same place. We'll review the strong and diverse economy and safe, reliable, and efficient infrastructure result areas, as well as the URA budget and the capital improvement plan. Okay, if there's nothing else, then I think this meeting is adjourned.